Okay, we're in chapter 22, Sif Ches, number 8. Let's go. Tachlon is not said on the following days: Rosh Chodesh, the 15th of Av, the 15th of Shvat. Let's go through this. So Rosh Chodesh, we know the first day of the month. In some months it's the first 2 days. It's 2 days. The 15th of Av we just celebrated. The Mishnah says about that it's one of the happiest days of the year. The 15th of Shvat is the new year for the trees, which, at least from a halachic perspective, at least in the simple understanding of the Mishnah, doesn't seem to be a day of celebration. But yet the custom has become that it's a day when we celebrate the new fruit, and therefore it is not a day that we say Tachnun. Chanukah, okay, the 8 days of Chanukah, of course, we don't say thing. The 2 days of Greater Purim, yeah, that means in a year when there's a regular year, you just have 2 days of Purim and Shulchan Purim, which is the Purim of Yerushalayim. But on a year like this coming year, which is a leap year, you have the Purim in the second Adar, which is called Purim Gadol, or regular Purim, right? The Greater Purim. And the 2 days of Minor Purim are Purim of Adar Rishon in the first Adar. The 33rd day of the Omer, that's like Omer, during the entire month of Nisan. So why don't we say during the entire month of Nisan? Because the first 12 days we are celebrating each of the Nesiim in the inauguration of the Mishkan who brought carbon on that day. And then you have Erev Pesach and Nisra Chag. And because it's the month of the Exodus and already the majority of the month, we don't say Tachnun, so we sort of sanctify the whole month by not saying Tachnun. Tisha B'Av. So why don't we say Tachnun on Tisha B'Av? So what he says here is it will become a joyous holiday when Mashiach comes. Although, yeah, already I think it says there's a pasuk in Eicha that says that we don't there's a pasuk in Eicha that says that Hashem made a time for the destruction, which is based on the fact that the 9th of Av, already from the times of the spies, had been pre-designated for a time of such things. But we were also taught that the word moyed, that because it's called moyed, which just means a time, but it also is the same word as a festival, as a holiday, so therefore we don't say Tachnun on Tisha B'Av. Of course, why is Tisha B'Av called a holiday? Presumably because in the future it will become one. But already now it's manifest in the midst of all the mourning in the fact that we don't say Tachnun on that day. Yeah. In addition, on the other side, that's what I would call, but also it's also connected to the mourning, perhaps, because for some reason, I don't remember right now what the reason is, but for some reason, Oval during the year, and somebody's sitting Shiva, we said already before, we said that in C5, hey, we said that in the Oval doesn't say Tachnun. So in Tisha B'Av, it's a day of communal mourning. All right, the days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, from Rosh Chodesh Sivan until the day following the day after Shavuos, right? So from the first day of Sivan, we don't say because it's Rosh Chodesh, followed by the 3 days, by the second day of Sivan, when Hashem said that we would give Amlechas Kohanim v'Gei Kodesh, that we would designate it to be Hashem's nation, and then followed by the 3 days of Hakabbalah in preparation to Matan Torah, followed by Shavuos, and then Isra Chag the day after Shavuos, which is also somewhat of a holiday. Our minhag is that we don't say Tachnun all the way through the 12th day of Sivan, because that's when as long as the Tashlumin days for Shavuos, and if somebody didn't have a chance to bring the sacrifices for Shavuos, they could bring them up to the 12th of Sivan, they could compensate. Then Then he says also not on the day following Sukkot, and again, common practice is that we don't say Tachnun for the remainder of Tishrei from Yom Kippur. 1 second, see it says yeah. And it says the day following Sukkot, and again, the common practice is that we don't say all the way until the end of the month of Tishrei. On all these days, Tachnun is not said at Mincha of the preceding day. However, the day before Rosh Hashanah, the day before Yom Kippur, this is a mistake. He's saying the day before Erev, yeah? Basically, the day before Rosh Hashanah and the day before Yom Kippur, Tachnun is said at Mincha. Oh, yeah, the day before Erev Rosh Hashanah and Erev Yom Kippur, Tachnun is said at Mincha, and then on the day before Rosh Hashanah and the day before, but on the days before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Tachnun is not said, and the day before Rosh Hashanah, Tachnun is said at Slichas, but after that, it is omitted. So we do say, when we say Slichas in the morning of Erev Rosh Hashanah, we do say Tachnun in the Slichas, and then afterwards, we don't. Now, let's just cover a few things that are not covered here. First of all, he doesn't mention here Pesach Sheni, which we don't say Tachnun on Pesach Sheni also. Are there other days that are, hold on. Okay. There are a few days on the Chabad calendar where it's customary, our minhag not to say Tachnun, and also what else? Yeah, and some, it's not the Chabad minhag, but many Hasidim have the minhag not to say Tachnun on the yard site of a tzaddik, but that is not the Chabad practice. Ariel, would you pass me a siddur from the bottom shelf, the old print of the siddur?
I go Malka every month of Shabbos at Kal Chasidim.
Oh, you got that?
I help set it up.
Okay.
So, they bring up every
40 days
a week the tzaddik that has the art site. So they have reason to not say Tachnun all the time.
Yeah. So because every day of the year there's going to be some great person. But all right. Okay, see test 9. On Monday and Thursday, there are favorable days. Why are they favorable days? Because during the 40 days of the second, where the second Luchos were received, Moshe ascended on a Thursday and descended on a Monday. And it was during these 40 days that Moses begged and pleaded for forgiveness for the sin of the calf, which is, of course, the theme of Tachnun. Therefore, additional supplications are recited, and before Tachnun, V'hu Rachum is said. Minhag Chabad is to say it after Tachnun, Minhag Ashkenaz is to say it before Tachnun, but either way, we add the paragraphs of V'hu Rachum. It is said standing. It must be said with concentration and with deliberation in a pleading manner. On days when Tachnun is omitted, V'hu Rachum is also omitted. After Tachnun is completed, half Kaddish is said. On Mondays and Thursdays, Keler HaChapayim is said while standing, which is the section that we add before on Mondays and Thursdays before the opening of the Ark. There's that section called Keler HaChapayim, those 3 lines, which is also said standing up. Now, there are some minhagim, I believe the Ashkenaz minhag is that you don't say that that Keler HaChapayim is not the omission of Keler HaChapayim, not synonymous with because of some background. But you can unmute yourself if you need to ask something. So, which days do you not say Keler HaChapayim? So, Minhag Chabad is that any day that you don't say Tachnun, you don't say Keler HaChapayim. But a more common minhag, which is minhag Ashkenaz, and actually used to be the Chabad minhag, because that's what's printed in the Tehillas Hashem Siddur, is that only certain days when you don't say Tachnun, right? If you look at before Kelech HaPayim, at least in the old print, perhaps they probably changed it in the annotated Siddur. Let's check. I assume they changed it because the annotated Siddur is meant to be just very simple and instructions of what to do. Yeah. So here it just says the following paragraph is recited on Mondays and Thursdays, except when Tachnun is not said. But if you look in the original Tehillas Hashem Siddur, it says the following paragraph is said on Mondays and Thursdays, except on Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah, Purim, Shushan Purim, Erev Pesach, and Tisha B'Av, right? But for example, on Isra Chag or on other days that we mentioned that you don't say Tachnun, Pesach Sheni, right? You would say Kelech HaPayim according to this minhag. But nevertheless, the Chabad practice is that we don't say Kelech HaPayim on any day that we omit Tachnun, as is alluded to with the asterisks in the bottom of the page in the Siddur. And again, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that minhag, the common Ashkenaz minhag, is that you do say Kelech HaPayim on other days of no Tachnun, like the days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and the days after Sukkot till Tishrei, etc. Yes?
It gives all the.
Oh, so here it has there I have a full list of days which are not in the list that we said. Let's look through this. Always the afternoon. So obviously on Friday afternoon, etc. There's the days in which Chabad don't say Tachnun are the days of when the Rabbeim were released from imprisonment for their efforts in Yiddishkeit. So for the Alter Rebbe, it's the 19th and 20th of Kislev. For the Mittler Rebbe, it's the 10th of Kislev. And for the Friedrich Rebbe, it's the 12th and 13th of Tammuz. But besides those, we do say Tachnun on birthdays and yahrzeits and other days connected to the Rabbeim. Okay. Right, and of course, when Shabbos falls on a day that you don't say Tachnun, obviously you never say Tachnun on Shabbos, but when the date of Shabbos is a date on which you wouldn't say Tachnun, so then we omit of Harachamim by Shachris before Musaf, and we omit Tzidkascha for Mincha. Okay, moving on to chapter 23. Any questions? Okay, so what's the history to the reading of the Torah? They're going to say it over here. Let's see. Okay, so the Rambam, we recently discussed this. The Rambam gives the history for the reading of the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu instituted that we should read the Torah on Shabbos and Monday and Thursday, so that you should never have 3 days without hearing Torah. And Ezra added, first of all, it's based on the pasuk Vayelchu Bamidbar that the Jews went for 3 days without drinking water, and water refers to Torah. So we want to make sure we don't have 3 days without reading of the Torah. Ezra, later on, Ezra HaSefer added a number of things, but in terms of the frequency, Ezra added Shabbos afternoon. So until Ezra, they would read it only Shabbos morning, and then Monday and Thursday. And Ezra added also Shabbos afternoon. And of course, we also have readings on fast days and on Hanukkah and other special days. Okay. When the Sefer Torah is taken from the ark to be carried to the reader's lectern, to the bima where the reading takes place, it is to be carried toward the north, that is to right of the carrier. So I should actually emphasize this, because I see people making a mistake with it, with different rules with regards to bringing the Sefer Torah versus when you get an Aliyah. When you get an Aliyah, I assume he's probably going to say this soon, but we can mention it. When you get an Aliyah, you take the fastest route to the Sefer, to the Bima, and you go back to your place on a roundabout route. Whereas when you bring the Sefer Torah, you bring it to the right, which is north, and you bring it back from the left, which is south. Right? I mean, it's also your right. If you come from back, it's also your right. On the way back from an Aliyah, yeah. Okay. When is returned to the ark, it's carried towards the south. Sefer Torah should be held in the right hand. It's a mitzvah for everyone before whom the Sefer Torah passes to accompany it to the front, to the bima, right? So the chazan takes the Sefer Torah from the front to the bima. So as if he passes by you, then it's a mitzvah to accompany it to the bima. And indeed, this is something which some people do. However, I believe that in Chabad, one second. Yeah, many people are lenient not to follow that. Everybody should follow him, whether it's because sometimes there's a lot of people and it gets too cramped. I believe that I'm just saying this from memory without checking it out, but I believe that the Rebbe's custom was to not physically walk after the Sefer Torah and follow it, but to follow it with his gaze, that he would keep his eyes on the Sefer Torah until the Sefer Torah reached the bima.
I think people do it at Bnei Ruvain.
To walk after. Yeah, some people do it. I should also mention something which is the Rabbi mentioned a number of times, that you should be careful not to remove the crown from the Sefer Torah until you actually reach the bima, not like you're 3 steps away and everybody's trying to help out and think. You should actually keep the crown on the Sefer Torah until you're ready to put it down on the bima. Okay. The Oila called up to the Torah should wear a talis with tzitzis. He should take the shortest route and return to his seat via the longest route. There we go. If both routes are of equal distance, then he ascends to the right and descends by the other route. It's customary to wait until the person after him has completed the last bracha, and then he descends between the readings. And yeah, sorry, it's on the screen. It was customary to wait until the last person was called up after completing the last until the person called after him has completed the last bracha, and then he descends in between the readings. Now, as far as wearing a talis when you're called up to an aliyah, so every shul has a different practice. Some do require it, some don't. There is somewhat of a myth that the Chabad custom is not to. It's not really true. The Chabad custom basically was, and there are some Chabad shuls where they still maintain this, that it depends. If it's a minyan where most of the people in the minyan are married and therefore wearing a talis, so then it's the person who davens for the Amud who gets an aliyah also wears a talis, because that's respectful to all the people in the shul are adorned with a talis, and he's going to go up sort of bare, naked, not naked literally, but without a talis, and represent them by getting an aliyah or whatever. It was disrespectful, so therefore you do wear a talis. But if you're in a minyan of a bachrim, where in the yeshiva minyan, where most people are not wearing a talis, so then there's no reason that you don't need to get up dressed extra fancy. You just have an aliyah. So hold on one second. So that was the original Chabad custom for all the years. That was the custom in 770 as well. And in fact, some in Chabad, the minhag is that when a chassan gets an aliyah for his ufruf, then he wears a talis. There's no difference between an aliyah for an ufruf the week before the wedding or any other an aliyah. The reason why that became the minhag was because in 770, when would a bacher ever get an aliyah in the main minyan in 770? They gave there were 7 aliyahs. They gave it to prominent people. If there was a chassan, then he got an aliyah, and because it was in a minyan of married men, he would wear a talis. And the bar mitzvah bachrim did not wear a talis because they got the aliyah later on by mincha. The Chabad custom is the Rebbe instituted that the bar mitzvah bachrim should get the aliyah for mincha, and so mincha wouldn't wear a talis. But in the earlier years, the bar mitzvah bachrim did wear a talis when they got an aliyah in Shachris. Anyway, be that as it may, we could we could get into a whole discussion over here. But the bottom line is, you do the minhag of whatever shul you're in. So if you're creating the minhag of a shul, then you should consult your rav and decide what minhag you should create. But if you're in an existing shul and you have a minyan, so and you have a minhag, so whatever the minhag of the shul is, if the minhag of that shul is to wear a talis, then you do, and if the minhag is not to, then you don't. In the shuls that the minhag is that you do wear a talis, then a couple of points. First of all, many people don't do this, but it's important to check the talis to make sure it's kosher, because often dafka shul's talis has most chances of not being kosher, right? A person, if you borrow a talis from somebody else, So presumably that person checks his tzitzis regularly, so you know it's kosher. But if you just take one from the shul, then often it gets neglected, and it's important to check it. However, the minhag is that you do not make a bracha. If you're just putting on a talis to get an aliyah, let's say you're at Shabbos Mincha, yeah? So, Shabbos Mincha, you're davening at a shul where the minhag is that you wear a talis for Shabbos Mincha aliyah, so you do not make a bracha before you put on the talis.
Right.
All right.
Okay, I've got a question.
Yes.
At Beis Menachem, I can understand how you take the shortest route to the Torah. How do you take the longest route?
You walk around
Back.
the long way. You just walk
Oh,
around.
the bima.
Yeah, you walk
Okay.
around the bima. Yeah. All right. Open the Sefer Torah and look at the place to be read and hold it open with both hands. So here, okay, so there's different minhagim. Looks like people are anxious to get ready for mincha. Should we pause here? Okay, we'll pause here. We'll continue next week. Bill, you might be busy next week, so
Yeah, I don't think I'll be making it.
we'll give you a pass. But the videos will be posted, and you can always watch.
Yes, I'd certainly do that when I miss some of them. So thank you very much.
All right, very good. See you.
See.